Today on Captain Cash's Laboratory, I'm going to show you how to change the light bulbs, or LEDs, on the Department 56 Village Accessory Christmas Luminaries. I had to dig these things out. I've had them for many, many years. I don't display them, mainly because I'm missing a bag. But I've seen some people have some issues with them not working. Now, this is a fully functional set. And I take them apart so you don't have to, until you have to. So, anyhow, it's missing a red bag. I had thought about trying to make some new ones out of some red paper, just maybe open the seams and lay it flat and trace it. But it's more that I do this for, I got this for parts, just in case I had to do something. But anyhow, how these work is it's 3 volts, which I can't find my C batteries, and my 3-volt AC adapters are still buried in the move for the laboratory. So I've got 3 volts going into it, and surprisingly, these things at 3 volts pull a half an amp. They are actually a high power consuming product. But what I did notice is these can handle a much higher voltage. That's 4.5 volts, and that's about as high as you want to go. Anything beyond that, you'll start to burn out the lights. So you could technically run these on a Max power supply, but your longevity is going to be much, much shorter. But anyway, besides that, let's get into working on this. So on the back side of these, you can see there's a track, and inside the track is the wire. It goes there, it goes to, and then there's a black button or plastic piece that holds them in. It's kind of like it's pressed in, which, for instance, on this one, where this was the one that was missing its bag. This one came off when I was moving these to get ready for filming. This one's tipped, and you can see the black right underneath it. So you can kind of see these black buttons. So how we do this is we got to get this thing apart. So since, again, these are just parts for me, I'm going to remove the ones that are loose, which is just the one. Now, depending on where it is in here, it might be easier to remove the entire set or just try and remove the one. And the reason I say you might have an easier time removing the entire set is these wires are so tight between them, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be the easiest process, and that's just part of the way it works. The easiest ones to replace are going to be the 2 ends. But if you try and take the LEDs and you try and push them through, nothing happens. You can't push them through because of this plastic cord. So, but just take a small screwdriver. What they did is they took the wires and they cut them. They didn't just end them right here, so they continue. So I'm going to try and pull the wires up. They are glued in. You can technically use heat to remove the glue, which I might end up doing. Depending on how yours have been stored, you may not have to use heat because it may just separate on its own. Probably going to have to use heat on these. Yeah. Now when you do the heat, be careful because the fake snow is plastic. Too much heat, you'll melt the plastic. Or just too much heat in one position. As you can see, I'm moving my heat pen back and forth to distribute the heat, so I'm less likely to melt the plastic. We just need something to get the end up. They use a really good glue on this set. Trying to get the black piece to break free. And turn off the power because I created a short right here where the wires are. Kind of an annoying process. I've replaced one of these before, not of this string, but on a different string. And the other one must have been stored differently because the glue was brittle and it just basically popped right out. This one's not doing that. I'm trying to get the glue that holds the black plug in out, because that's what's holding the LED in. So by getting the glue to break down, I can get the LED out. And when you glue these back in, just use a little bit of hot glue. It comes off easier than this hard glue that is used from the factory. There we go. Need something that's a little bit elevated for me to push on. I got it to start to move. It's a process. It's not something that you're going to be able to do in like 3 seconds. Nothing's fast when it comes to these repairs. Apparently I got half the glue to break free, but not the other side. So I got the black to start moving out, the black plug. It's glued on both sides, so it's a cylinder, and it's like 2 parentheses around it like that. And one side broke free. I just need the other side to pop out. There we go. Alright. I'm gonna remove where my wires are touching real quick. Hopefully that takes care of the short. I should be able to turn them back on. Yeah, there we go. See, that's how you get your light out. So if it's in the middle, You saw how difficult it was. This is why I recommend trying to get them all out. You're going to have to remove the bags, of course, to do it. The bags will usually, if you wiggle them, you can get them to slowly come off without tearing the bag completely or at all. A lot of these they don't make anymore, and usually from storage. The tabs come right off, as you can see. You'll get the residue from the glue, which is probably just double back tape that they had on these bags. But you can do this without tearing the bags. I would not apply too much heat to the bags because they're paper, and you'll probably end up discoloring them or catching them on fire. So I usually just wiggle them. And when I glue these back on, like on the set I fixed many years ago, I used a drop of Elmer's glue. I didn't use or the Elmer's paste, sorry, the stick. I scraped it and made a little with the toothpick. Not Elmer's glue, Elmer's paste. So if we heat the rest of this and then pull the next one out, the rest of this, pull the next one out. And that's how you take them all out, because if they're on the end, if it's on the end, here you go. You have your end, you want to peel more of this back, which I think I got it hot enough that it'll peel some of it without tearing. There we go, I got a little bit more up. We would just cut the wire and then solder in the new one. So I'm going to go ahead and heat up another one and pull out one of these up here, and then we'll show you how to replace the LEDs. So, but you are definitely going to need heat to do this process because the glue is so hard. Unless yours has been stored in a hot place to where the glue is broke down. But these are stored in my house, so they really aren't exposed to any heat. If they were stored in the attic or a shed, they probably wouldn't be white anymore. They'd probably be discolored from the extreme heat in Arizona. And of course, if your heat gun has a nozzle, it will make it a lot better. If your heat gun doesn't, so it's just an open heat gun, then it's going to take a little bit longer to heat it up and you might end up burning your fingers. It's already cooled down where I can't get the LED to pop. Now I'm just going to heat up the wire so I can pull the wire up. Alright, so we got the LEDs out now. Now, just need some new LEDs to put in its place. But this is the process on how to remove them. The biggest issue you're going to have, especially since I'm having on this string, which I didn't have on the previous string, is the insulation has come off the wires. Not a big deal. If you have some thin wire, it's easily fixed. You can get thin wire from many different sources, other than buying a roll if you don't want to. But if you have some computer parts lying around or burned out motors, it comes with thin wire. So, like the original Limax motors have the same size wire, it's just red and black. What's nice about this is it's on the bottom, so you won't see it. You can also use varnished wire or coated wire, where it's it almost looks like there's nothing on it. I've had somebody refer to it as nude wire once. I thought that was kind of funny, but it's the kind of stuff they use in transformer windings. So here's a red flashing one. So we'll just use that one as a, because it's the same size LED. So I'm going to make this one a red flashing one, and it fits in the hole. Now the black plug, don't try and salvage it. Use hot glue, a little drop of hot glue to hold it in place. This black plug is actually a ball of resin or liquid plastic that they use to coat the connection where they soldered the wires on, so that way it wouldn't make contact or create a short. So now the wires on this side stripped, the wires on this side didn't. So it's just the temperature, the heat, or how the glue was adhered that it varies. You're going to have issues on it no matter what, because again, they're not supposed to be repaired, they're supposed to be replaced. Because that is the motto of pretty much anything these days. Nobody ever fixes things, you just throw it away and replace it. Now how this works, while my soldering iron is getting hot, is we have two wires coming into each light. So the two wires come in, they make a connection on each one of the leads, and then they continue to the next set, and then the next set, and all the way to the end. And that's why this end had wires that were just cut off. It's because they just lay it in there, snip it, go to the next one. Just like that. You can see the wires are inside. So technically, you could probably extend this another couple of LEDs if you wanted to. But if you have it plugged into the battery pack and it's only on batteries, you're going to wear the batteries down faster. Now, I don't know which one is hot and which one is not. So I'm going to turn it back on for a second. Lights are on. And I'm going to see which is the negative and which is the positive. So you can use a voltmeter, or you can just use the LEDs like I am and just touch. There we go. Hope you can see it flashing. So the positive is this one on my side, and this one over here is the negative. Now, depending on where you cut your wires, depends on how you're going to extend the next one. Sometimes you can fold these to where you don't have to use an extension. Sometimes, if you're lucky, and you can just cut the bad light out right at the solder joint, the black ball, you may not have to extend them. But most of the time, you're going to have to extend your wires. You're pretty much guaranteed on that, because there's no slack. Since this light was used as a test for a different project, I got solder on it, so I'm just going to remove the solder real quick, just to make it a little easier for me. And if you don't have any heat shrink or varnished wire, so these are just bare, and if they touch, they'll be a short, you can actually isolate them with hot glue. Just like, well, Limax has been doing that forever. So if you put them in parallel and there's enough gap to get a little bit of hot glue in there, you won't have to use an isolator such as insulated wire or varnish wire. So there is, as the old proverbial saying says, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to do a wiring job. So I'm going to pre-tin the copper wires that are coming out of here. And that is the one thing that's nice about some of these older pieces is they're pure copper. They didn't use tin or aluminum wire with copper flashing or coatings. So if you have a soldering iron, they solder really nice. Next, I'm just going to put my LED in here, see how far these wires go, so I know where to snip off the excess. Now, if you happen to put your LED in backwards, it's not going to hurt the LED, but it will just not light up. Then you can just desolder it and do it again. Just reverse the wires. Make sure it works. So I got a flashing red LED. Okay, so I soldered it too short, which is fine. It's really easy to fix. All I got to do is just slide the LED down on the solder. So these are all real life things that could happen to you. So let me just, here we go. Now I got the LED lined up in the hole better. So now I can resolder it. Like that. You can also just put the LED in the hole and solder it, which is probably what I should have done. But I just didn't want to burn the plastic. Because again, soldering iron, just like the heat gun, is really hot. So. See the flashing. Now we need to go back and put this LED in. So we already know these work, so I'm just going to use one of these as an example. I'm not going to go dig out another LED. So let's just say this was the bad one. This guy right here in the middle. You know, one of the harder ones to get to because it's not on the end. We're going to take our wire. We're going to make sure it's not touching anything. We're going to make sure it's stripped. And we're going to tin it. So if you repair your own, and if you've done any soldering work, you might notice that when you solder certain things, it solders nicer. This was me going back to the copper. Copper transfers heat better, which allows solder to work better on copper. Solder works on a lot of different things, but that's why I like old copper pipes in a house too. I know a lot of plumbers don't, but it's because it's easier to repair because the type of solder. So if I were to stick this in into its hole, we can see that the wires are too short. If your leads that you cut off are long, you can use these as jumpers. If you ever watch any electronics things on the internet, so there you go. There's our, so I don't have to go get wire. You can reuse some of the extra pieces. But if you watch any of the electronic stuff on the internet, especially the ones from other countries where they make little light projects, you'll see they use these pieces they cut off all the time, which is actually really smart. So I'm just going to use some helping hands so I can pre-tin this, because this whole little piece of wire is going to get really hot, especially as I have to do both ends. So I don't want to hold one end and then burn my freaking fingers when I hold the other end. At least it cools down fast. Now, if you have some really thin heat shrink too, you can also slide heat shrink down one of the wires. So this is some of the thinnest heat shrink I have. It's really small. It's actually made for this size wire. I think this stuff says it's rated for 22 to 28 gauge. So, and that's what this stuff is, 28 gauge. So you can get heat shrink, and it comes in colors. It just happens the kit I buy, a lot of it's black and yellow, blue, and red. But they also sell it in clear. I have clear too. It comes on a spool, but it's for like 16 gauge, so it would be too loose. But you can also slide this on there if you're also concerned about it touching. Something like this, I would just use glue or varnished wire instead of using heat shrink. That's just me personally. It's whatever fits best for what you're doing and your skill. Honestly, the easiest way to do it is usually using glue. Hot glue, not super glue. Speaking of hot glue, so let me get my hot glue gun warmed up here. I'm going to glue this light back in so that way it'll stay in place and stop moving around when I'm trying to solder. But while I'm waiting, I might actually see if I can solder while I'm waiting for this to get hot. Now, if you are doing it this way, you're going to want something to keep your fingers away from the heat. Now, I use ceramic tip tweezers because ceramic doesn't transfer the heat as much as the metal does. If you don't have it, regular tweezers or most pliers will work. It just might take a little bit longer for the heat transfer to go into effect for your soldering. And you can buy the ceramic tip tweezers. If I have a link, I'll link them below. But you can get them on Amazon or eBay. They're very inexpensive. They're for electronics, so you don't arc electrical stuff. So if you're working on a circuit board or components, you don't want to touch and make contact with metal, so that's what these are for. They also work good for soldering because they don't transfer heat. Heat loss causes you to, and that's what I mean about the hot glue gun is, see, the wires fell out when I was trying to solder. Heat loss when you're soldering is bad. It can cause a cold glue joint or solder joint. It's kind of a glue joint. You're gluing metal together. But you don't need the specialty tools to do the job. You can get away with regular tools. You can get these at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. They're usually in the bead making section, the long, thin nose. You can get, these are also in the bead section. Matter of fact, this one says the Origami Owl is the manufacturer of this size pair of tweezers. You can get just good old-fashioned metal tweezers. You can even get the big fat broadhead ones. Doesn't matter. I have a lot of tweezers. I use them for different purposes depending on what I'm doing. So, now that I got a little bit of glue on there, that light won't be falling out and getting in my way. Now let's go ahead and finish the solder and make sure that this works. Just using the to elevate, the pliers to elevate. I'm going to put a little solder on the leads from the LED. I tinned the wires, but I didn't tin the LED. There you go. Turn the lights off just to give you a little bit better. Let's make it a little darker in here. So, this also allows you to change your colors. Now, be aware, yellow, orange, green, and red run at a much lower voltage. They're going to run perfectly on your 3-volt power supply. Blue and white and UV or purple and pink run at a higher voltage. 3 volts are going to make them really dim and they may not even turn on. Or at least they'll be on, but they'll be so dim you won't notice it. So let's turn on the lights again. Just so you can see. And one more. There we go. So I'm going to set this down. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Okay. There we go. So you can make this tighter, meaning that the wires will be tight like this. I have them open because I didn't put any glue in here yet, or use insulated wire. You can see the track. You can see how I use the lead right there to connect to the original wire. So you can actually use the leads, especially if it's close to the end. But if it's like 2 of these are burned out, you might have to just replace all the wire. And there's a few ways to do it. If it's just 1 light or 2, maybe doing it this way is fine. If you have multiple lights, it might be easier just to put all your new LEDs in, have all the leads sticking up, make them really short, 1/16 of an inch high, and then run wire straight across and just solder at each of the points where they touch. Especially if you use the varnish wire. If you use the varnish wire, you don't have to remove the insulation. The heat of the soldering iron will actually melt the insulation, the varnish, around the solder joint. And I have some, but it's in a box from moving. I don't know where it's at. But it's the same wire. It's not a transformer. If you ever take a transformer apart, it's the same kind of wire that's in there. It's varnish or lacquer coated. So if you don't have any small gauge wire, you can use the leads that come off of the back of the new LED, because all of these come with the long leads. And then you trim them to whatever you need. So I bent it this way. You can see where I cut and soldered. And then I used it as a jumper to go from here to here. If I had my wire that wasn't in a box, I would show you how to run new wire. It's the same principle, except the wire would have insulation. I have it spread open, but if I put a little glue on this one and let it, just a thin bead like I did right here, I would just put a thin, and then you saw me wipe it with the nose of the heat glue gun. It makes it thin. Once you do that, let it cool down, and then put another bead in there and then squish the wires together. What you did is you insulated one of the legs separately, and then when you push it into the groove, you've now insulated the whole thing, and you've recessed it back into its groove. It sticks up a little where I have it soldered, and that's because it's not pushed all the way down. It's not that hard to push it all the way down. I would have to fill this with glue first and then push it in, so that way the glue gets between the wires. But I wanted to show you how to pull it apart. This is just a parts piece to me. I got this so I had some spare bags and a spare box. It was, I don't know, I think it was $1 at the Goodwill, and it was missing a bag. And that's how you change an LED, especially if it's in the middle. So now you can make your luminaries different colors if you want. as long as they're all in the same voltage scale. And you can even get the flashing ones if you want. Also, these itty bitty guys, they make them in flicker. They're just solid. You can see they're just on. Flicker imitates its candle or a flame. So you can make your luminaries look more like luminaries, where it looks like it's dancing light inside of the bags. If you want to upgrade yours, you're probably better just to get this hot, pull each one of them out, and at the very beginning of the string, cut the wire right there. Run all your LEDs, stick them in, put a drop of glue on each one to hold them in place, have the little stub sticking out, and then run the varnish wire the whole length. And then that way you don't have to worry about it if you're replacing all 6. If you're only replacing 1 or 2, just replace them with the orange. These are just regular orange 3mm LEDs. You can get them in a pack that's all by themselves, which usually the packs are between like 10 and 25. Or you can get them in a multi-pack where it comes with other colors, such as green, blue, red, white, yellow. Flashing LEDs are specialty. They're separate. But I wanted to use something that was, I didn't have to dig out. I had it laying here because I was using this as a test for a different project to make sure I had power, and then make sure that I had a visual notification of power. And then once I was done with the circuit, I just removed the LED. So it was just something to catch my eye, so I knew what I was doing. Or I knew if it was all working while I was working on it. Now let's zoom back out. Wrong way. There we go. So, 3mm, these are, we'll go a quick recap since it's pretty much done. 3mm orange LEDs. You're going to need to get this hot. If you have a generic heat gun, which doesn't have a tip, like the one I have, the heat pen here, it's still warm. So if it's just a big open nozzle, you can heat the whole area and do it until you start seeing it become pliable. The easiest way to see if it's becoming pliable, let's get this back on, there we go, is to push on the LED. If you start seeing it trying to pop out, use something like I was doing to push so you get equal pressure to pop it up, and then just continue all the way down to wherever your bad LED is. I'm hoping that if you have a bad LED, it's one of the ends. Now, if your whole string is out, before you remove all your LEDs, I'll use this one since this side's still original, check here where the LED wires cut flush. Make sure that there's no contact in here where one of the strands has come out and jumped across and turned off the whole light string. But let's say you stepped on this and you broke them off, then I would pull them all out and change them all. And the reason I change them all is every batch of LEDs is going to be a slightly different intensity, brightness, or hue, coloring of the orange. Or you may leave it like that, because if you walk down the street and see luminaries, depending on the height of the candle inside, if they're using real candles, depends on how bright that specific bag is. None of them are always perfect. Unless you fill them with actual incandescent bulbs or LED bulbs, then they all look the same. But I'm just talking in real life versus the miniature versions. So, 3mm LED, they run at 3 volts. Actually, they run like 2.8. There's a small resistor inside this box to help lower the voltage a little. I'll put a link below for LEDs. As far as the wire, since I don't have it, I'll try and find some and link it below as well so you can see what I'm talking about when I say the varnish or lacquer wire. If not, I'll try and link some of this 30 gauge insulated wire. It may not be white though. I found a lot of these that are white, they're painted, they're dyed. And you scrape them and they're red or pink or yellow underneath. Mostly Limax does that. You'll scrape the wires and they'll be multicolored underneath. They just paint them so they match. And then, as far as the black corks go, which is this thing right here, that black cork isn't so much a cork as it is a black plastic cap that just keeps the wires insulated inside so they don't touch. And you can imitate that with a daub of hot glue. I would not use anything harder than hot glue, such as super glue, Gorilla Glue, etc., because if you have to replace it again, because it burns out or you break it somehow, you have to pull it back apart. And of course, hot glue, when it gets hot, you can peel it back out. When you use a harder glue or a resin style glue, then you get it so hot that you can damage things. You need a heat gun that's at a higher temperature. If you have an adjustable heat gun, I had my heat gun set for 180 degrees Celsius if it has a temperature range. If it just says high, low, medium, it would be classified as medium on your tester or high on your heat gun, depending on what settings you have. If you have a multi-step heat gun, like I have one that has a dial that goes like 1 through 6 or 1 through 5, I'd still put it about 3, start in the middle. Watch your fingers, and you will have to be able to solder, so make sure you watch your fingers on that too. Helping hands come in handy. If not, you can use needle nose pliers or tweezers, something to protect your fingers from the heat of the soldering gun and the heat of the heat gun, because you can get first, second, third degree burns from both of those. So hopefully this is somewhat educational. If you have any questions, let me know. This is just a quick, we're at 40 minutes, quick, brief, again, 40 minutes, how to do this. It's down and dirty. They're not designed to be repaired. They are kind of a pain in the butt. I would recommend, if you are going to repair any of them, to remove all the luminary bags carefully and then just use paste. I use Elmer's paste and put a little bit of paste on there and stick it back on. So that way you can remove it again in the future if you need to replace the light again. And then, if you really want to make it special, change colors. You know, if you are doing Halloween, you want to have Halloween luminaries, because I see them around here as almost as much as Halloween as I do at Christmas. You can make these, green, as an example. So, anyhow, that is how to change the LED or LEDs on your luminary run from Mr. Christmas, Department 56. Wow, been a long day, and it's a basic how-to. Yours may be easier or more difficult depending on how yours has been stored over the years that you've had it. This one's been stored in the house, so none of the glue is broke down. The pair I repaired for the guy that had that massive outdoor display, his was stored in his garage. I could literally just pop these things out because all the glue had separated internally and they were really easy to pull out. And I never thought about filming them because I've never seen anybody use these before outside of him. I mean, I have a set, but again, I didn't buy them to use them. I bought them more for maybe parts or the future, since they literally cost me $1 over at the Goodwill. And that was like 5 years ago. So I think they were like $1.49 and a 20% off coupon. But anyway, hopefully this helps. Any questions, concerns, comments, put them below. I try to respond to everything as fast as I can, depending on life. Depends on how fast you get a response back. If you have suggestions, please put them below. This community, we're here to help each other keep this community alive, and any suggestions that may make it easier are always appreciated, even for myself and of course other people that are working on it themselves. That's one thing that our local villaging group strives on, is we're trying to be as helpful to everybody in this community as possible, because this community, I think, based on what I keep hearing, is dwindling, meaning there's not as many new people doing villaging as there is old people that are leaving the villaging scene, whether it be because of age, finances, or death. So as long as we can, let's keep it going. So everybody who does villaging, dioramas, and trains, we all stick together. We all show each other how to keep our stuff going. I think we can keep this alive for as long as possible. So until the next repair or inspection, have a good one. Thanks for watching.